This three-bean casserole is dumb.
Scooby-Doo-bop-biddy-bop-bop-bop. I'm so sorry, babe. I hadn't tasted him yet,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Looking forward to, you know, like,
Don't talk about the ingredients. I know. Yeah.
After it's just a surprise for your mouth.
yeah.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes, and it's time for another comic book review. Today I'm reviewing Way of X from Simon Spurrier and Bob Quinn. This is the latest installment of the, I guess we're in Reign of X now, the Jonathan Hickman as the head of X lineup. This is almost like a direct sequel to X-Men number 7, which came out, I believe, in like February of 2020. Part of the problem with this comic book, and I really don't know how to feel about it. I'm going to talk about it, and we'll see if I can come up with an actual score here by the end. I do recommend it, but like this comic book probably should have came out a year ago. This should have debuted within 3 months of X-Men number 7, and I think it would have been more impactful and would have made a lot more sense if that X-Men number 7 issue was fresh in your minds. Now, this is interesting in the fact that my favorite character in all of Marvel is Nightcrawler, and he's certainly the lead in this comic book. I believe it's supposed to be an ongoing. I will be shocked. I will be flabbergasted. Like, my jaw will be on the floor if Way of X makes it past 12 issues. This has got miniseries, retroactive miniseries written all over it. I don't know that a lot of people are going to be clamoring for a comic book like this, especially when there's so many X-Men titles. Like, only the hardest of the hardcore X-Men readers are probably going to get into this and continue to read it. And with so many offerings already, they probably already have their favorites. It's getting pretty expensive to buy the entire line. So I don't foresee this comic doing all that well, although this is a very intriguing addition to the roster. Now, Simon Spurrier, I think he works really good on a character like John Constantine. Well, he certainly has a moral code and a moral compass, depending whether you think it's pointing north or south. That's obviously how you interpret the character. There's some ambiguity to the character. You can place things in front of him, and there's not always a right answer for that character. It's not that he's more complex, but he's willing to bend his own principles a little bit more than other characters, and I think that suits the writing style of Simon Spurrier very well. Plays to his strengths, whereas a character like Nightcrawler, I don't think it works quite as well. Like Nightcrawler, or like a character like a Superman or a Captain America, or even a Wolverine, even though he's more of an anti-hero, he has a moral compass, and you can kind of predict the way Wolverine is going to act almost any given situation. That's why it feels really strange when they do something really out of character. You're like, Wolverine doesn't bend his principles. He doesn't bend his morality. He does what he thinks is right. That's when you read like a Watchman, you might not personally resonate with Rorschach and his beliefs and his point of view, but you do gravitate to the character because he's the only character in Watchmen that really never bends his own principles. He doesn't bend his principles to the situation. He says, this is the way things are, and this is the way I believe, and that's how I'm going to act. Nightcrawler is one of those like cornerstones within Marvel Comics, and specifically the X-Men. Does he have crisis of faith here and there? Absolutely. But he's one of those characters that kind of no matter what, what how he's gonna react and what he's gonna do. I think that in the long term is probably gonna be the unraveling of Way of X. Obviously, I'm going to get into some of this stuff here in a minute. So it's complicated. That's what I'm saying. This book is complicated. Whether it's good or not is on the eye of the beholder. Now let's get into it. Let's talk about the art, which I think was a big miss. Not that Bob Quinn's art isn't good. It's certainly perfectly fine. It's good art. It fits the style, the house style that we're getting with X-Men, as Doc would call a Stuart Immonen clone. But this book and the tone of this book and the story that this is trying to tell does not fit in with the rest of the X-Men line. And I think it's a missed opportunity to maybe bring something a little bit more experimental, a little bit more expressive to the table that would actually fit the tone of what Simon Spurrier is trying to accomplish in this book. So the art's fine. I prefer R.B. Silva and Pepe the Raz, but this, it fits in with what those guys are doing. It's not like spectacular, but it's good, but it doesn't fit the book. So I do think this is a missed opportunity for them to do something really cool with the art in this book. And that's all I got to say about the art. Let's get into the story because there's a lot of stuff to unpack. This is a 40-page, $5 comic, and you get your $5 worth in this comic. This is a long read. There's plenty to process. Once you read it once, you're going to have to go read it twice and maybe a third time just to really grasp all the things that are going on. You're going to miss a lot of stuff the first time because there are a lot of moving pieces in this comic book. So I'm going to talk about the big stuff. I'm going to skip a few things because I don't have time to talk about all of it. Yes, I realize that there's a hate museum for mutants, but I don't think that's really what this story is about. That is just a prop to kind of get into what we're talking about. So the first big thing I'll talk about is Pixie. Pixie is being peer pressured by the other mutants that have been resurrected. Specifically, we know that they're doing this, the Crucible, where Magneto. Before that, I believe it was Apocalypse, or like sacrificing mutants that lost their powers to Wanda in House of M so they can be reborn with their mutant powers. And these other characters, obviously Pixie still has her powers. They're kind of peer pressuring, like, what are you doing? Like, you gotta be resurrected. You're not like a real mutant anymore unless you've been resurrected. And they're peer pressuring her. And there's this really crazy moment right in the beginning. And you see when Nightcrawler witnesses it, it really freaks him out. She basically goes up to this guy, and these aren't good guys. These are bad guys, specifically in this story. And she makes him shoot her in the face with a shotgun. She forces this man to murder her. That is like evil. And it definitely leads into this, the feeling that I get that the mutants are the bad guys here. In this situation, both the characters might be bad guys, but the mutants are certainly doing some very, very bad things. And you can see it troubles Nightcrawler quite a bit. And you can see the other characters, they're all nonchalant about it. They think it's really funny that their friend got shot in the face and they forced this man to murder somebody. Or at least he believes he's murdered him. And this is like the first big kind of test of Nightcrawler's faith. Like, what do you believe in? What are you willing to put up with? What are you willing to witness and turn a blind eye to that's happening on Krakoa? And I think that a lot of that is what this story is about. I find this reprehensible. The fact that Nightcrawler, he did try to intervene, but in the end, he doesn't do much about it, is really out of character, in my opinion. Other people might disagree with me. There's another character that plays big into this, is Magneto. Nightcrawler decides to play a little bit of a joke. While they were in the Mutant Hate Museum, they got this piece, and it's basically Magneto with some cruise missiles and stuff, and Magneto takes it as an opportunity to make this big speech. And he's talking about, we've defeated death. Mortality is no longer an obstacle for us. Almost talking as if we are our own gods kind of thing. Obviously, this is in direct contradiction to Nightcrawler's beliefs, the beliefs that Nightcrawler has held on to since he was introduced into Marvel Comics. Has it been like 50 years? I think it's been somewhere like that. Another moment that directly challenges Nightcrawler and, kind of his faith and the foundation of the character. And then they do have a conversation, and he brings up the Crucible. And Magneto is a big proponent of the Crucible, and you can see it's very conflicting to Nightcrawler. He thinks it's evil. But Magneto's also checking in with him. He's like, what's going on with this mutant religion I thought you were going to come up with? And there's another interaction with Doctor Nemesis, where he's basically saying, like, if you don't create your mutant religion, someone more powerful than you will, that will be the moral compass of Krakoan society moving forward. So he's kind of pressuring him into acting. So there's a lot of pressure on Nightcrawler to be like the moral center of this new Krakoan society and develop these moralities, basic principles that should be guiding everybody, and that he should be the one creating it before someone else does it for him. But he's witnessing these insane things that are happening, and he's having to reconcile that with his own faith, the faith that he's maintained for a very long time, and he's held steadfast. Obviously, being a Christian and a Christian character, he's had his faith challenged, but he's always come back to it. That's always been the center of the character. There's a lot of Christian themes and iconography that's going on in here. There's that direct moment. It feels like it's essentially the Good Samaritan tale from the Bible, where there's a character saying that they're lost and they need help, but Nightcrawler doesn't have the time, so he sends them off to like the welcoming building, and it turns out that character ends up in the Crucible, and Magneto's going to kill the character, and he tries to save this character that's talking about I'm lost. So we have a very morally conflicted Nightcrawler. Throughout the issue, and it's in multiple panels, you'll constantly see him holding steadfast to his rosary. You almost see his hands are just gripping tighter and tighter as he's witnessing all these things, as he tries to kind of maintain a grasp on this guiding light that he's had, throughout his life. And these first panels here, these are from the interaction that he has with Doctor Nemesis. And you can see he's trying to hold on tight. At what point does he have to give up the things that he used to believe in? Because as Magneto said, in a direct challenge to his beliefs, mortality is no longer an obstacle for us. We're above that. The beliefs that you've held no longer apply to our society and to you, is what they're trying to challenge him with. And you need to change your core beliefs and adapt things, to Krakoan society. So he's being challenged a lot, both symbolically, through interactions, and he's having these dreams where this character, I believe people are calling him the Patchwork Man, is visiting him and other mutants and kind of, stalking them in their dreams. I think one character said, I don't know that this was supposed to be like a wives' tale, where it was a direct accounting where they were dreaming about hurting their mother, and they woke up in the kitchen and their hand was like in a knife drawer. So he's being haunted by all these things, but it feels like, like I said, he's holding on to his rosary. He's trying to hold on to his faith, these core beliefs. But then we get to this one moment, and you're seeing a duality in the character, which hasn't really been there before. Certainly there's been conflict, challenges of faith, but he says one thing that is in direct contradiction to anything that you would believe Nightcrawler to say. It's certainly with the things that we've seen and witnessed. Just in this issue, we've seen him witness the Crucible, where a mutant was murdered. We've seen him witness Pixie force someone to shoot her in the face, and they believe they killed her. He's witnessed some very, very bad things in here. And this is what he says to Charles Xavier. The problem is, I can give no good reason why mutants shouldn't behave as they do. Even at their most savage, I can find no moral flaw in these emerging cultures. That is in direct contradiction to the Nightcrawler that we've seen. This is good stuff if you're talking about maybe a more morally conflicted character, maybe Beast, or even Charles Xavier himself, who we've seen do things that aren't exactly heroic multiple times throughout the character's history. But Nightcrawler, like I said, he's one of those, he's a foundation piece. He's the moral compass of the team. He's like a Wolverine. He's like a Captain America. He's like a Superman. You need these characters in these worlds to interact with other characters when they're doing bad things and to call them out on their BS. But now he's not calling anyone out on their BS. He's kind of buying into it. It's very out of character. Now, this could be resolved and be interesting. I don't know if it's character progression. This isn't character progression. The character progression would be him to survive this test. That would be character progression. But for him to just give up something that he's held so dear and has been so important to the X-Men universe would be character regression, or at least in my opinion. So there's potential here that there could be a good story where we see Nightcrawler pass the test and in the end be more powerful with his faith than he ever has before. And remember, there are very few Marvel or DC characters who are grounded in faith. There might be Marvel or DC characters that are of faith, or we know that they have faith, but very few that are actually grounded in it. Daredevil being one, Nightcrawler being another. Now, Chip Zdarsky on Daredevil, one of the big things that I like about that is he understands, while I don't know that he agrees maybe with the moral compass of Daredevil, but he understands it and he highlights it and it's a big part of the fabric of the character. I don't know, just from the little bit of Simon Spurrier that I've read in the past, that he's going to kind of lean into that. I believe he's probably going the other way, but we don't know. We'll have to see. Now, there is a little bit of a tease that maybe it will go that way, because right after this is what Nightcrawler says, but I feel it, something terrible just out of sight waiting for the cracks to appear. So he wants to believe in what's happening with Krakoa. He sees no moral flaw, even though that directly contradicts everything the character stands for. But he still knows, like in the back of his mind, something is very wrong here. This could be a really cool character exploration in Way of X, but it also could be a very damaging character deconstruction of Nightcrawler, who's one of the foundation pieces and a moral compass, not only for the X-Men universe, but the Marvel universe, in my opinion. Now, the other big thing that we do get in here is that Charles Xavier has a secret. In the beginning, he's waking up, he's having these nightmares that are plaguing a lot of the other mutants. And he wakes up and he grabs this picture and he's looking at a picture of his son. It doesn't directly click in the beginning, but by the time you get to the end, you figure it out. It's Legion is the Patchwork Man. He's the one that's haunting the dreams of the mutants on Krakoa. And Charles says, from what I can tell, its actions are marked by surges of negative emotions, fear, anger, misery. I suspect it's preying on us, dreams, nightmares, moments of weakness. And he sends out Nightcrawler to confront the Patchwork Man and kind of resolve the situation. Now, it is his son. He knows Nightcrawler is not likely to kill him if he doesn't have to. And then at the very end, Nightcrawler is like in a cemetery, and he's visiting this grave because it was a character that Legion had a connection to, and he knew that he would come and visit there. There's another interesting part. I'll mention this. I hadn't planned on it, but Legion himself directly challenges Nightcrawler because they're at the tombstone of Blindfold. And he's like, why do you think they don't want seers on the island? Why do you think they won't resurrect any of the mutants that have this ability? Because do you think it might be because they don't want people seeing what they're doing? And Nightcrawler makes an excuse. He's like, well, the line's long. Is Legion the devil? Is Legion an epiphany? Is Legion a spark of truth for Nightcrawler to see Krakoa for what it is, and the villainous activities, the villainous nature, the villainous culture that's developing on Krakoa that is in many ways, you could say evil? Or is he the devil? Is he supposed to be a tempter? And then, Nightcrawler's supposed to, find his moral compass in what Krakoa is doing. It could be very interesting, but I do not have faith at this point so much in the X-Men line. And I personally don't have a lot of faith in Simon Spurrier with a character like this. That's just me personally. I imagine there are other people that are big fans of his and can probably cite numerous times where I'm completely wrong on this, and where he had a character of this nature, had challenges like this, and then he resolved them, staying true to the nature of the character. But I've certainly read a few times where I did not think that was happening. And like I said, that works for a character like maybe a Constantine or something like that. I don't think those kind of challenges and revelations work for a character like Nightcrawler. I think Nightcrawler, for progression, he has to overcome the challenge and return to the morality and the principles that he started with to maintain who the character is and his importance in place within the X-Men universe. And that's just the way I believe about the character. I imagine some people be upset with me. So that's my review of Way of X. It's an interesting comic. Is it worth $5? Absolutely. I wish they'd done something more expressive or experimental with the art. They went with the Stuart Eminem clone. That's what they've been kind of doing for the most part on the X-Men line when they can. And Bob Quinn's art is perfectly fine. This could be very good or it could be very bad. We just don't know yet. I will give Simon Spurrier this benefit of a doubt. It's an interesting setup. I just personally don't have a lot of faith, or any faith really, in the X-Men office that they're going to deliver on a lot of these things that have been set up. And I do think this issue came out way too late. They should have set up this. I'm almost certain this is going to be a mini-series in the end. There's no way this is going past 12 issues. There's no one that's going to read this unless they are the most diehard X-Men fan ever. I don't think Simon Spurrier just has that kind of fan base is going to come over here and read this kind of story. This should have came out within 2 or 3 months of X-Men #7. And I think they probably would have resonated with people. And I think it probably would have been more successful. So I don't know. I recommend it. I do need to grade the comic for what it is. I'll give it a 4-star and I'll give it a highly recommend, I guess. This could be going places, although I do have major league trepidations on what is actually going to happen here, because I do love Nightcrawler and I think he's very important to the X-Men universe. But we shall see. That is my review of Way of X. It's complicated.